I now call to order this special meeting of the Anchorage Assembly. Today is December 19th, 2024. We are on the record from 10:15 to 10:45 a.m. It is now 10:18. Madam Clerk, would you call the roll, please?
Member Brawley?
Here.
Member Bronga?
Here.
Chair Constant?
Here.
Member Johnson?
Here.
Member Littlefield?
Here.
Member Martinez?
Present.
Member Myers?
Here.
Member Perez Verdia?
Here.
Member Rivera?
Present.
Member Salt?
Here.
Member Voland? And it's my understanding that Member Zolotel is excused.
Yeah, Mr. Mullen is excused. Member Zolotel is excused that she has a personal interest in this question.
Chair, you have a quorum.
Thank you. All right, Mr. Littlefield, would you lead us in the pledge, please?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Member Brawley, would you please read the land acknowledgement?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
A land acknowledgement is a formal statement recognizing the indigenous people of a place. It is a public gesture of appreciation for the past and present indigenous stewardship of the lands that we now occupy. It is an actionable statement that marks our collective movement towards decolonization and equity. The Anchorage Assembly would like to acknowledge that we gather today on the traditional lands of the Dena'ina Athabascans. For thousands of years, the Dena'ina have been and continue to be the stewards of this land. It is with gratefulness and respect that we recognize the contributions, innovations, and contemporary perspectives of the Upper Cook Inlet Dena'ina.
All right, thank you. Today on the agenda, there are 2 items of business. However, I have been informed that one of the offerers has rescinded their offer. So we will only have 1 item today for consideration. Is that still correct? Yes, I'm seeing nodding heads. So today we'll take up item 4A. 4A is Assembly Memorandum AM 1023-2024, recommendation of award of a contract to Henning Inc., the operation of a warming center location of the municipality of Anchorage. What is the will of the body?
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion to approve by Mr. Johnson, seconded by Mr. Littlefield. We'll go ahead and turn to the administration.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to all the members here today. We very much appreciate you taking up this item at a special meeting. Anchorage is a winter city, and warming is a critical piece of our winter safety net. The practical reality is that people need a place to go. Warming has been part of the administration's homelessness and health strategy since the summer. Our team has shared and discussed our strategy at monthly assembly committee meetings and in one-on-one conversations with members and stakeholders, including the Anchorage Coalition to End Homelessness. Warming is not a new service here in Anchorage. The difference this year is that the administration put this service out for competitive bid. We're always excited to talk about creative, cost-effective ways to improve service delivery and leverage municipal resources. We also vetted such options as part of standing up short-term warming. It's winter and it's cold and people need somewhere to go. We can't afford to pause. Any delay today means 3 to 4 more weeks of people outside in potentially below freezing temperatures. APD and AFD have been especially clear that there needs to be somewhere to bring people in from outside. Warming is a critical and time-sensitive safety net service. Our wider commitment is to significantly reduce unsheltered homelessness, starting with responding to the crisis in front of us, like warming, and working to get out of crisis mode by bringing about more housing and services that move people out of homelessness altogether. And I want to thank members of the body for your work in these areas. We look forward to today's discussion and continuing to work with all of you to keep making big progress on homelessness. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. A couple of folks in the queue. Ms. Brawley.
Thanks. Just a quick question on the budget. I see it says Health Department operating funds for 2024 and 2025. Is this Is this part of the existing line item for shelter? I understand it's a different service. Is it the leftover funds from that, or is it other kind of unspent funds within the department? Just want to make sure that that we've already appropriated or budgeted for this money.
Through the chair to Member Brawley, I think we'd ask Director Kim Rash to speak to that.
Welcome, Director Rash.
All right, sorry about that. So the budget that is outlined in this document is our operating budget. There are funds, there's about $5 million appropriated in that line item for sheltering needs. Everything from congregate sheltering, which is the muni match, as well as rapid rehousing and third-party oversight are some of the other line items within that budget.
Thank you.
Mr. Rivera.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. So a few questions. I'll just state them all at once. So first is, I appreciate the administration bringing this forward to us. How is this warming different from last year's warming and prior year's warming? Are there different provisions in the contract? If you can just speak to that. Two, I noticed that the documents talk about a goal from the health department to provide warming for 70 individuals. Obviously, with one of the bidders deciding to pull back their bid, now we're at 50. So if the department or administration could just speak to that, if they have any plans. And then third is, this is a little bit late breaking, but we did receive earlier today an email from the coalition. So I want to see if the administration has any thoughts or feedback on that. Thank you.
Through the chair, Member Rivera, thank you for the question, and thank you all for being here with us this morning. To address your first question, how is this different than warming that we've stood up in the past? In previous years, warming initially was associated with the Sullivan, and it was stood up as tents outside with heaters, and then it was moved inside to the Sullivan hallway in 2023. And last year, warming was stood up at sub-zero temperatures in February for just simply 2 weeks. Warming is always the lowest barrier service that we can provide to an individual. So when you ask what is different about our current warming process, to the mayor's point, this is the first time that we have had the opportunity to move it through an administrative process that allows the body as well as the community to actually see the cost of services. But we also included staffing ratios to ensure that warming was safe. In past years, it was always executed through the mayor's executive power. So we didn't go through the normal procurement process, and we didn't have our partners at AHD looking at it to ensure that we're keeping individuals safe. There were concerns that were brought forward by the coalition, who we value their feedback and their partnership, and we recognize that we all are allowed to have a different opinion about how we move services forward. In the ITB, we immediately identified and recognized that individuals that are experiencing inadequate heat would also be recipients of warming services, along with individuals who are unhoused. So that was a consideration in what we were looking to do. In the ITB, we asked for scatter site model because we truly wanted to make sure that there were multiple locations so that it was convenient for individuals to get to warming. Warming at our current and only bidder that has made it through the process is the Henry House, now currently called the Henning House, which will be in a separate building, and it'll allow those individuals to come inside, have access to blankets, coffee, and be fully staffed. We recognize that it is going to be a mix of people. In previous years, there's not been a distinction made between the populations that are served through warming.
And then the 70 individual goal.
Yes, thank you. With our current bidder, it is only 50 individuals. We initially wanted to bring on 70. MASH was giving us that additional capacity for 20. We will look at what are we seeing for individuals that are coming in for warming, and are we reaching capacity at the 50? And then we can look to initiate additional capacity if needed. But I think this gives us an opportunity to make that decision based on data.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right, thank you. Mr. Johnson.
Yeah, thank you. Two questions. And I think you kind of answered the first one right there. Is the plan for now is just to stand up the 50 spaces and then wait and see? So there's no immediate plans to try and solicit more space for warming shelters right now?
Through the chair, Member Johnson, that is correct.
Okay, thanks. And then my question for APD, the mayor said that AFD and APD have been asking for this essentially. And I think we've heard some anecdotes from APD in the past about challenges when we don't have a place to take people. But I was just wondering if briefly you could speak to maybe why or how APD sees some benefit to your responsibilities and bringing this forward.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Through the chair. So I think I can't overstate the importance of this to the Anchorage Police Department. I get emails daily from our sergeants and our other officers in regards to when this is going to occur and what we do without this. Where are we supposed to go? How do we take people? And it does two things. One, it creates a sense of hopelessness with our officers when they want to provide some level of service to these folks. And I do agree that there are many different ways to look at providing services to this community. And I think that we need to and have explored many of those. I believe from a first responder's point of view, this is a critical one for us. It takes time away from our officers when they have to manage a person who they have no place to take. They haven't committed a crime. They're potentially not a title for a behavioral health or a severe mental illness, and they don't have a home. There's no family. There's nowhere to go with this person. And I've seen officers with a person in the back of their patrol car up to 5 to 6 hours, just trying to figure out what to do with this person. And a lot of times what they'll do is they'll take them to the hospital because they don't know what else to do. And that's not a sustainable, nor is it a right response to this process. And so I'm here to speak for those officers in the fact that they are asking for this. They need some place for these people to go so that they can continue to go back in service and go to calls for service and make sure that these folks are safe and that they feel comfortable that they are in a safe place, because nobody wants to assume that risk when you walk away from somebody who potentially needs to go someplace warm.
Yeah, thank you for that. I guess I'll just know quickly, if we're contemplating what, $40 per night per person, I mean, that's about an hour of maybe an APD officer's time. So certainly from that perspective, there'll be some savings there, I hope.
I think APD's hours are quite a bit more than $40. So, yeah. I have next in the queue, Mr. Salt.
Thank you, Chair. First, I just want to say a big thanks to those that provide warming services, whether they know it or not, such as the LUSAC Library, transit centers, airport, coffee shops, and their tolerance around that. I really appreciate that. My question's maybe a bit outside of what's before us, but we've gotten feedback that one of the builders was associated or near next to a marijuana shop as well as a bar. And I know they're not the winning bidder, but I just want to make sure that the process, should they have been the low bidder in this, that the process would have taken that into consideration, or we take into consideration proximity to other uses, maybe such as a school bus stop and things like that, as we award these bids. Thank you.
Next, Ms. Braga.
Thank you, Chair. I was looking through here and trying to figure out, so are they only able to stay here at night, or is it so that in the day they would be released out? And I received an email, I think we all did, about the spillover in neighborhoods around the Alex, and wondering what would be in place. It seems like there'd be a lot more loitering around a shelter site. And then another question I had is, it looked like 4th Avenue, or it looked like something was maybe going to be, if MASH was doing it, more toward Davis Park, or is that not correct? I feel like that's such a large group of homeless individuals in that area that we really need some sort of warming near Mountain View to help with that. So one is how to patrol the area and keep neighbors safe, and then the other question is about, if there's even an informal tent type thing, there's just so many people out at Davis Park. I really worry about them.
Through the chair, Member Bronga, thank you for the question. When it comes to patrolling, we are aware of neighborhood concerns, and our vendors are absolutely working with anyone. So let me back up. I apologize. Warming would operate from 8 p.m. until 8 a.m. Our vendors would be working with those individuals to link them to resources like Third Avenue Navigation Center. Later on this afternoon, we are actually, the administration and our third-party oversight are meeting with Alaska Behavioral Health to also set up some additional linkage and support for individuals that would be exiting Warming, such as the Pier Lounge, areas like the Alaska Mental Health Consumer Web that are places that individuals can go during the day, alongside the different locations that Member Salt referenced that just intrinsically serve these individuals. With regard to the location, the ultimate goal is really to link people, to ask them not to be in the neighborhoods, because it does create, we want to have a good neighbor policy, and recognizing that any of our Muni operated shelters, that's what we strive for. With regard to location near Davis Park, fully understand and hear that loud and clear. Our current bidder is downtown. It is the Henry House, and we only have one location. So your comments we can definitely take into consideration, recognizing that we were interested in scatter site and we only have one location.
To the chair, Member Margo, we did actually look into a tent. We had some partners willing to provide that. It just is tricky because one thing we really want to be able to provide is parking, partly because of folks in Davis Park who we know have vehicles. We want them to be able to come and go into Warming overnight. The other thing is, even if you have a tent, you still need humans to operate it. And it's hard to operate that type of service if you're not kind of connected to a building. You know what I mean? So like for the staff to just be in a tent kind of in the middle of, and not have somewhere to go. So we did consider that option. It also turns out tents aren't cheap. So it was going to be pretty pricey to have a tent for the winter. So anyway, we ended up not including that in the ITB for those reasons. But just so you know, we did consider it. Yeah.
So another question that just popped into my head based on that. I know, Ms. Brown, you talked about how the churches, because of the fire, you having to have a fire inspection. Is it possible that we could do a change of code, that if churches were willing to step up for a little more warming, that we could go that route for those that were interested? And then maybe we could find a Mountain View church that would be willing.
Through the chair, Member Bronga, thank you for the question. We have been in active communication with AHD and just to find out what has been different. So just a little bit of a level set. In years past, prior to the pandemic, our emergency cold weather services were always operated by a stitched together network of faith groups. And it also relied on partners in our nonprofit community. At the initiation of the pandemic, tons of federal dollars and other resources flooded into the state, and the municipality stepped into the space. Alongside stepping into this space, as with any good government, regulation stepped into and licensing requirements. And that really created an administrative burden for faith organizations that were not grant funded, that really are pulling together based on members in their congregation and other volunteers that were providing the service for individuals to come in and have somewhere to stay at night. So what we are looking to do for the upcoming winter season is to really reactivate our faith organizations. Thea and I have been working to collaborate with different churches and other faith organizations to pull together a faith convening so that we can really hear firsthand what are some of the barriers and challenges to operating in this space from pre-COVID to post-COVID. One thing that we have heard, and very anecdotally, is it's kind of the administrative process that now exists, and then rebuilding congregations and that volunteership, because as people were able to log on, and go to church remotely, that's just shifting people back into action and service is something that we're looking to help catalyze.
All right, I'd note that Mr. Mullen has joined us. I don't have anyone else in the queue, but I have myself now. I have two things. One, I would note that you know, for 8 years, I've been working to deconcentrate Fairview as the go-to location for all of these services, end all be all, because we created a dynamic in which that was the only place in this town where these services could be. That's where the campers were. That's where, oh, that's where they are. That's where we need services. Well, we better put the services there so they show up, and we drive that neighborhood into poverty. And I note that for this record because I'm watching. And this could be a step in that direction. In fact, we have one shelter now there, 2 shelters there, and now warming. So, but the second is a question. We haven't had a description yet on the record of what these services will include. What have they committed to deliver? What are we paying for? $40 per person per day.
Through the chair, thank you for the question. What we have committed ourselves to are,
Sorry, not us. What have the offers committed to deliver
thank you.
for $40 a day?
In response to the ITB, the offerers have committed to providing warming center operations from 8 p.m. to 8 a.m., which includes adhering to the municipality staffing ratio of a minimum of 4 staff, which would include a site supervisor, milieu support, safety. Find the other position. And a rover, thank you. And a rover. They are required to provide a hot beverage, blanket, hot beverage, blanket, and then overall safety and support, as well as we also asked, it is an optional service that they can also provide access to CE, doing CE assessment, as well as intake. We
What's
recognize.
CE?
Apologize. The coordinated entry assessments, which are absolutely essential to get people linked into the HMIS system, the Homeless Information Management System, which puts them in the queue for other services such as housing, linking into our congregate and non-congregate shelters, because we have been using the coordinated entry list. But it is also, we recognize that it's an 8 p.m. to 8 a.m. We're looking for it to be the lowest barrier service available. So we are not asking the individuals to come in to participate in something. The service is absolutely meant to provide life safety. It is somewhere for someone to go. And if they want access and resources, there are staff there that are made available. But no one is required to engage in anything other than being safe and being warm.
So the coordinated entry isn't a requirement.
Correct.
So we're going to have touches on these people, but not actually see them in. Because if it's not required, why would the vendor do it?
That is an excellent question. Again, we wanted to ensure that it is the lowest barrier service, that a person does not feel obligated. We want them to come in, feel safe, and be warm.
Chair Constant, just one other thing. As Farina mentioned earlier in the ITB, we did talk about folks who are housed but have inadequate heat. So it may be that some people that come to the warming wouldn't need to be on coordinated entry.
Oh, no, I appreciate that. And I think that that is one of the arguments but considerations, concerns that the coalition brought forward, that there are other people. And we should at every touch have an process in, not just because I don't see why a vendor would do that at all then. We're not getting paid for it. Why would we do that? We got other things to do. And so I'm concerned that we missed an opportunity. That is one thing. And the total cost works out to be per person, like, what is it, $1,200 a month? Per person? Right, no, so I'm like, if you think about a person, if they are to use that service, so it's $40 times 30. If you have an average month, except February, or, probably washes out, is $1,200. And so we pay less than that, I think, for our shelter conversion rooms. So while I recognize that this is a necessary service, we have to think about how we're doing this, because essentially every one of these just vacant beds that are going to be used maybe in this very low barrier way equals how much we could actually house somebody for, if we could find the room. And so that cost is high relative to other kind of relative inputs. So, okay, I have in the queue now, I'm told by the clerk, we need a motion to extend.
So moved, extend by 5 minutes.
Second.
Is there any objection to the motion? Moved by Ms. Bradley, seconded by Mr. Rivera. I hear no objections. Will be extended for 5 more minutes to 10:50. And so I next have Mr. Voland in the queue.
Thank you. Can you all hear me?
Yep, go ahead.
Great. I have a little bit of echo on my end, so folks want to turn their mics off. So, here we are, a predictable, repeated pattern. It is nearing the end of December, and we're scrambling to figure out emergency situations. And given a warning by the mayor, this will set us back another 3 or 4 weeks if we don't do something and act now. And so because we are, there's an urgency here, we're going to do the same thing we always do and expand capacity in East Downtown and Fairview. Personally, I expect better of this administration, and I'm going to be a no vote on this. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Braga.
Thanks. I just want to see if I understand correctly. It's not really a day rate per person. Hennings is charging a certain rate per day because they need to have 4 staff. And so if one comes in or 50, it's going to be the same per day rate. So my understanding is also that they have to run a 12-hour shift, which includes overtime, because you can't really have someone do a 4 a.m. to 8 a.m. So I just want to make sure that even though this seems like a lot of money, there are barriers to getting someone to be up all night with individuals that are experiencing, maybe a drug issue, or they're inebriated and, possibly violent. So I just want to make sure that that's clear, that it's a per day, not per person. And it's tricky. Staff is always the biggest, same with schools, staff is the cost, and we have to have these staff to be safe. So thanks.
Yeah, I'm going to put myself in there to respond to that. No, it is $50 per person per day minimum. That's the cost. And every bed less, it's more. And so that's the reality here. It's $50 per person per day minimum. And so we just have to recognize that cost. And yes, it's true. These are services that cost money, delivered the way that we've proposed them. This is how much. And so I just want it to be really clear. It is a cost per person per day. It's not, we're paying it. It could be $100 a day, but it's probably going to be about $50 a day. Mr. Voland.
Thank you. Mr. Chair, do you have anybody else in your queue?
Nope. Yes, now I do, actually.
Okay, then I won't. Okay, I'd like to call the question.
Before you do that, I want to ask forbearance for the mayor to be able to make her comment.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And again, thank you to the members for this conversation. I do want to point out that this is a life safety service. It won't be the same people. At least we don't expect it to be the same people every night. This is temporary. The timeline, I hear the members' frustrations about that piece. We did decide to put this out to bid. We've heard feedback from members, like with the first go around with the shelter. And so we took this step again of going out to bid, which hasn't happened in the past. And I just want to acknowledge too that we are in an emergency situation still. And someone, suggested to me that an analogy is a leaking boat where we are bailing water, and at the same time, we need to figure out how to plug it in the long term. So I appreciate the position you all are in making these decisions. And again, just really also appreciate your thoughtful consideration. as to how to respond to this situation we're in. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
I don't know that the question is in order. I think we're there, Mr. Boland. Anyone else?
Okay,
Hearing and
let's
seeing none,
move on.
members may proceed to vote.
Member Myers,
Yes.
Member Martinez,
Yes.
Member Littlefield,
Yes.
Member Rivera,
Yes.
Member Johnson,
Yes.
Chair Constant,
Yes.
Member Bronga,
Yes.
Member Vol,
No.
Member Brawley, Member Salt,
Yes.
Member Presverdia.
Yes.
That passes 10-1.
No, on a vote of 10-1, AM 1023-2024 has passed the body. We have no further items on the agenda. Is there anyone from the public who wishes to be heard? We have just a couple of minutes, maybe 1 minute. Welcome, come forward. We'll have a microphone. No. I can say that item 4B dies for lack of action because there was no, the vendor has rescinded their offer. So there's no need to proceed.
Mr. Chair, before we adjourn, might I ask one thing? Would the body consider a motion for immediate reconsideration to allow this to move forward?
All right, so there's been a request for a motion to reconsider.
So moved.
There's a motion
Second.
to reconsider by Mr. Rivera, seconded by Ms. Brawley, and request is to have a no vote. Any conversation about the matter? Seeing and hearing none, members may proceed to vote.
Member Myers,
It's fine.
Yeah.
Member Martinez,
Yes.
Member
I'm
Littlefield.
sorry, the administration is urging a no vote, just so everyone knows.
I meant no.
Yeah,
Yes, I want to vote no.
you, Chair.
so. Thank you. Madam Clerk.
For clarification, no.
Member Littlefield,
No.
Member Rivera,
No.
Member Johnson,
No.
Chair Constant,
No.
Member Bronga,
No.
Member Brawley,
No.
Member Salt,
No.
Member Presverdia.
I'll just note that the meeting is adjourned. The vote was concluded at the time the clock ticked 10:50. So
Fails 9-0.
thank you. I'm sorry, we are out of time for audience participation. Yeah. Could have interrupted procedural, but no.